If India fails with 1.4 billion people, then the planet will be in dire. The planet will survive without the humans, but the humans can't survive without the planet.
Welcome to this episode of Sustainability Karma. I'm your host Rajiv Tikoo.
We have a very special guest today, Freddy Svane, Ambassador of Denmark to India. We'll be talking about how India and Denmark are working together in their journey to achieve a net zero world. Thank you, Ambassador Svane, for joining us.
Thank you very much indeed. I am grateful to be part of this program because I have a passion for Mother Earth.
There has been of late acceleration in India and Denmark relations related to sustainability issues and projects and initiatives. How do you sum up it briefly and what has been the outcome generally?
I think it has to do with the will on both sides, really to dig into some of the biggest challenges of our time, namely the climate. And when we started looking into how we could combine the scale of India and the skills of Denmark, then the idea came to set up this Green Strategic Partnership. And it's based on 5 S's. Scale of India, it's not about how many people you are, it's more about the capability, capacities that you have. Skills of Denmark, technologies, practices that you have as well here. And then scope, whatever we're doing should not be for Denmark, India, both. It should be going beyond that. Speed, we have to work very fast to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. By 2030, climate is taking a toll on us every day. And last but not least, sustainability. So these ideas, which has been nurtured by Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi for many years. I met him back in 2011, where we started our common journey on, let's say, how can we green this planet and how can we secure that Mother Earth will also be there for our next generations. So that's in brief the story.
Globally, climate change is one of the pressing issues. What are the 3 climate actions that you would think are needed to accelerate?
First and foremost, there are a lot of good initiatives in India. Our Honorable Prime Minister has put up very, very ambitious targets for renewables. As an example, we see a lot of changes. Green growth is a driver out here. There are a lot of international cooperation, and so forth. We also have our own bilateral cooperation with Indian stakeholders. But for me, I think the most important thing is how can we take individual responsibility. So therefore, when Honorable Prime Minister launched back in 2023, as part of the G20 presidency, this Mission for Life, which is really pointing fingers of people, please do your own share. That's for me the most important thing. And how do we mobilize the masses? How do we mobilize ourselves in such a way that we don't sit back comfortably and say, okay, it's for others to solve this. We have to take individual responsibility. That's my passion.
What about the business aspect of it? There has been quite a bit of collaboration between Danish companies and Indian companies. Would you like to quote some instances which you see are really role models?
Yes, I'm happy that you're asking that kind of question. There's no way forward when it comes to sustainability without the private sector. Therefore, we need to bring in the skills, and they are often developed and really also incepted by the private sector. We have 2 major tracks in our Green Strategic Partnership. That will be water and that will be energy. When it comes to energy, as an example, we have jointly put up a Center of Excellence for offshore wind. And now we are looking into some of the first projects in India, or at least concepts are leading towards harnessing the power of wind in the sea. And there we have had a strong collaboration from government to government, agency to agency, and we have Danish companies. The famous Danish wind manufacturer Vestas has brought in a lot of sub-suppliers, so we hope really to see a speedy speedy conclusion on whatever project plans that are in the making when it comes to offshore wind. When it comes to water, we have a company like Grundfos, one of the world's largest manufacturers of of pumps, and we know that pumps being used by the farmers, by industries and so forth, pumps are really using a lot of energy, and therefore we need to, let's say, introduce energy efficiency as kind of target and standard. And I think Grundfos has really put in a lot of things. We also have another company which is extremely successful out here called Danfoss. They have a big campus outside Chennai. They are focusing on energy efficiency, cooling, and so forth. And they have now really invested a lot in India. So I think these are some of the outstanding examples. There are many more, of course. But what is important is that we can measure, we can see the tangibles of these operations. But it will come eventually, but it also has to be, let's say, fueled by good visions, good kind of coordinated actions from government to government.
The general perception is that European countries just want to sell technology here, and they don't really invest in innovation, co-creation, or co-development of technology here. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I do not necessarily disagree with you. However, at least when it comes to the Danish companies, I think there is a clear understanding of what are the expectations from the Indian side. And these days where India was just a marketplace, you could sell your products, or they could be very expensive, they could be not as resilient as what would be required in an Indian context. These days are long gone. When I'm advising our companies, I say India wants these 4 or 5 things: transfer of technology, investments, but also skilling and job creation. And that goes without saying that, of course, India is a huge market, but it's also a huge and growing economy, and it's on its way to become the 3rd largest economy in the world. And of course, you need to have a lot of jobs generated out here. And luckily, seen from our side, we see a lot of Danish companies putting up manufacturing sites in India, and that's a way forward. And then add to that, which is very important to me when we talk about also sustainability, we are not doing teaching or preaching. We're not telling you what to do or not to do. Basically, we are a source of inspiration, but it's also up to you to decide, would you like to use this or would you like to go a different way? But hopefully we hope that you will be inspired by the results that we have achieved in our development. And don't forget the fact that we were forced back in the beginning of the 1970s really to start our journey towards sustainability. We did not do it because we wanted, we were forced to, because the oil supplies were shut down from one day to another. India is in a different context. This is a deliberate, voluntarily decision by the government and the visionary leadership that India has to develop sustainably, and that's why we would like to be a partner of that, not only for that, but also for Viksit Bharat.
At the same time, what is it that Denmark would like to take away from India? Is there anything that India has to offer to Denmark in terms of sustainability?
I think there are a lot of things. There are 2 things which should be what we could be and must be inspired by India. That is affordability, because when we develop new products, you can't expect the price that you can get in US or in Korea or in Japan. You can't get the same price, and you should not get the same price, of course. Then resilience. And I think if you really understand these 2 aspects, then you can also see and use India as a gateway to Africa as an example. So that will be some of the takeaways.
Globally, Denmark has been a leading country in climate negotiations also.
We have, we are, we will be.
So what are your expectations in terms of breakthroughs? Do you expect any breakthroughs in climate technology, climate finance, or climate governance for that matter?
I think we need all of it. We need a breakthrough. It will not come on its own. Some are claiming that technology will be our savior, and then we can sit back and travel crisscrossing the world, enjoying the good way of consumerism. I don't believe in that. We have to take action. But it goes without saying that you can't do anything without technology and innovation. And India, when India had the G20 presidency, I think India really stood up and also developed a global agenda, action-driven, future-oriented, which has and will inspire all of us. And if we're going to really tackle the climate issue, and I don't think we have an alternative to it, we need to have a strong India on board. If India fails with 1.4 billion people, then the planet will be in a dire challenge, so to say. And every time I'm talking to my Indian friends, my Indian counterparts and so forth, I always would like to put the scale into it. And we are very much active in the water business, or water as such. And I say, if we, through using our skills, can save just a drop of water by a kind of very simple intervention, then you have to multiply it with 1.4 billion. And think about how big an ocean of water you generate if you can make 1.4 billion people saving just one drop of water, let's say in a day or every hour. It's immense. So India is so important, and I consider India as a very important, if not the most important driver. And then our side will have to understand that we can't dictate what should be done and how it should be done. No teaching, no preaching. You have the right to develop. 1.4 billion people, they are not having the same lifestyle, luckily, life standard, unfortunately, as we have. But you in India, whether you're from Kashmir or Tamil Nadu or wherever you are, you have basically the same rights as we have. We have developed our economy and our welfare through centuries. You are doing it in such a short span of time. So we should not dictate to you what to do or what not to do. We should help inspire you. And of course, we need cheap green financing. We need transfer of technologies, but we also need to secure that jobs are being generated. If many youngsters will not find a job, they will not care. We'll care about the climate.
India under Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been globally pushing for the LIFE mission, which also focuses on sustainable consumption. Yeah. Now, how much is really the rest of the world taking this seriously, sustainable consumption, reducing consumption, which is one of the major challenges we face?
If you measure on the mountains of plastics floating around in the oceans, or we did not really listen carefully, at least not enough. However, I believe that we have to follow this very clear but simple message: take individual responsibility. Because at the end of the day, I can't ask my government, you can't ask Narendra Modi, I can't ask your Prime Minister Narendra Modi to help my life ending up in the best possible way. I can have ambitions, I can have political goals, but by the end of the day, you have to change your mindset, and in such a way that you reduce your almost unlimited consumption of everything. You believe, many people believe, I have the right to spend, consume, regardless of what. And others will have to solve this as a wrong attitude. Therefore, I am a strong supporter of the Mission for Life. That's the first global initiative which really took its point of departure in the fact that you and I, we are responsible for our own fate and destiny. And the more that will listen to that message, the better.
But at a personal level, do you really think that Europeans or Americans are really bothered about consumption? Would they care about it?
No. When I have 4 kids, they love to consume, they love to travel, they love to do X, Y, Z of things. So basically, people are not caring. Sorry to say it, people will be angry with me, I'm sure. But fact of the matter is that we don't have this kind of consciousness. Now, climate is heating up. The planet will survive without the humans, but the humans can't survive without the planet. So at some point in time, our luck, if we have luck, will run out, and then we will burn off. So we have to understand there are mechanisms, and you can't just eat as many hot dogs or burgers. You cannot just consume water endlessly, using power endlessly. You have really to take individual responsibility. And I hope people will listen to it. You have to do it. I do it. You have to do it. We all have to do it.
Nordic countries, including of course Denmark, are always on top of the happiness index.
Yes.
What really makes you happy?
What makes a Dane happy is, of course, that we have developed a society, a consensus-based society over years, where we have decided really to take responsibility for our colleagues or next generations and so forth. That's so enshrined in our way of living. Denmark is one of the countries where you pay the highest taxes ever. I've often been asked, how can Danes be the number one in the global happiness index, or as we are now in the second place, when we have this high taxation level? And I say, listen, I am a happy taxpayer. And I've never been part of any tax reduction scheme, because I am a sincere believer that when you pay tax, you can afford it, and basically it's an investment in your society. Of course, when you do an investment, you need to have kind of return on your investment. So it should be a balance. In Denmark, we have free education, free healthcare, and we have a well-functioning public sector and so forth. So you have to be happy.
Denmark has been doing well on SDGs also, but globally we are not doing so well.
Thank you for being so kind to Denmark. We have all to do our best to reach and meet these targets. We are lacking far behind. Of course, COVID took a toll on our global, actions and so forth. My answer is very simple here. We can't afford not to meet the targets in 2030. We have to do whatever is possible to meet the targets.
And what do you think of the ongoing geopolitical tensions on climate action? How is it really impacting?
It goes without saying that when you have the war in Ukraine, this unprovoked attack by Russia on Ukraine, when you have the conflict in Gaza with the atrocities of the 7th of October, and now all the aftermath of that in the Gaza Strip, and how many people have been killed, how the sufferings are happening, that of course that's not good for our, global action when it comes to fighting the climate, poverty and so forth. And that's a sad part of it. Apparently the human beings, we do not get to any common sense because there are wars here, there and everywhere, and we don't understand how lethal and how destructive it is. I hope really that we'll find a way out of these different wars and conflicts, and that we will combine all our resources towards more important goals instead of winning territory and all that, namely to secure that this planet can live forever, and with the human beings also being part of that future. And therefore I like this very strong word and slogan that India came up with during the G20 presidency. We are one big family, one planet, one Earth, one future, whatever you call it. There's only one. I'm the one, you are the one, and it starts with you.
Thank you, Ambassador, Freddy Svane, for a candid conversation. It was wonderful talking to you, and we covered so many issues.
Dhanyavad. It was a pleasure. And thank you for inviting me on your program.
Thank you very much.
For participation in this program, write to us at sustainability.karma@gmail.com. You may also connect with us on social media. This podcast is also available on podcast hosting sites. Looking forward to meet you again at the same time next week with a new episode and a new guest. Till then, goodbye from all of us.